Welcome to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast. I'm Joe, joined by Mel. And today's episode is called Connection Before Correction, where we'll be talking about how to build a relationship before you make a correction or change in somebody. We get a lot of questions. How do I handle this disciplinary situation? And yeah, we can band-aid it together in the moment. However, if you have a connection with the person, it is much easier. So if we do the groundwork in our family, a lot of these situations start to alleviate themselves. And Mel, go ahead.
Welcome back to the Strong Family Project podcast, where we guide you on the path to raising confident, independent, and resilient children in a strong family environment.
Each episode, Mel and I are testing out a little bit of a new segment on the show to provide you more value. Now we're testing them out now. You can comment here or on our Instagram in the show notes or through our website, strongfamilyproject.com. We have our email there on which segments bring you the most value, and we can do them more consistently. And for now, while we test them out, it's simply we both bring something to the table we want to talk about. Don't tell the other person and see what happens so you get a more candid conversation. I'm going to go first again. I'd like you to share a quote that you reflected on during this quote or thought that you reflected on during this last week. Would you like me to go first?
Yep.
Okay. Here's a quote that I wrote. People think about you a lot less than you think they think about you. And that comes from on my feed. I get recommended a lot of parenting articles now. And I'll see articles like 10 ways parents are judged that aren't right, or 4 countercultural things about parenting. And it's a lot about a judgment based and people trying to get others to think differently about them. And while those are clickbaity headlines, I don't necessarily believe they're all true, where it's people go around and think about others all day long. I think mostly we think about ourselves and our situations. It's probably better that way, where you think about yourself, your family, your situation to move forward. You shouldn't be thinking gossip in your brain all the time. And the quote speaks to that, in that these parents were saying, hey, I feel judged for doing this thing. So are you sure that's true? Or are you judging yourself because you're not sure that's the thing you should be doing? If you are very concrete in your action and you think it's the right thing, then just do it. And really, most people aren't thinking about you anyways for your own peace of mind.
Okay, so this is an interesting one because Joe knows that I'm terrible at recalling quotes. However, this is one that we had talked about the other day and I think about often. And I believe this is said by Jim Rohn, who's a really great speaker. What's easy to do is also easy not to do.
You nailed it.
Did I really?
Yep.
Because in my head when I was thinking about it a minute ago.
We were talking about it yesterday and you were way off.
Yay. Basically, the things that you say yes to, you could also easily say no to. And I think it's a mindset shift. So let's say you don't want to work out. So you want to say no to it, but you could just simply say yes and walk into the room and do some working out. Or in terms of eating, or in terms of how you handle, or let's say after dinner, you could sit around on your phone, or you could go for a walk. So you can easily say no to the walk. You could easily say yes to the walk. You just have to be able to follow it up with action. So I just think it's an interesting way of putting it. I think oftentimes people think saying yes is harder, but it really is just yes and then being able to follow up with action.
Well said. A lot of the steps of the path are easy to do, and it's simple but not easy, but yeah, they are easy to do. They're also easy not to do. It is easy to have a family meeting during dinner on a Saturday night that you already are sitting there at dinner, but it's also easy to skip it and say, we'll do it next week. It's easy to give yourself leeway. It's easy to do it. The tasks aren't physically demanding or mentally straining to do. It's just establishing the habits, and that's a very good one. Thank you for bringing it to that table. What is your segment, Mel?
My segment is, what if we've been honored to be some guests on podcasts recently, and I'm wondering, what is something you have learned or pulled from one of our conversations that we could share?
So something I learned from another parent, it actually doesn't come from a podcast conversation this week, although there's been some great ones. And I'll share some of those as we go forward. I got a text from a buddy of mine, Vince. And so Vince and I are constantly working on our kids and reflecting back and forth on what's working, what's not working, how it's going. And his son has been working very hard. And he was recently Warrior Kid Wednesday on Jocko's Instagram page for the Warrior Kid books, which our kids enjoy a lot as well, for his commitment to personal growth and development. And so we come up with these different strategies of like, how can we help our kids grow? What are the routines and habits? And he texted me a picture, and he did a great job of printing it out, which is something that you like to do, and I'm terrible at. So I got to give Vince credit for actually making a visual of it. But it was his 34-day challenge, which I believe it was something, a 45-minute workout together. A 15-minute workout could be like a walk or something small, little stretching and mobility, because Joey does jujitsu. And read 5 pages. And eat 1 unhealthy snack a week, I think is that the last one. And so it gives Joey some framework. Our kids will be doing a lot of that, and we're not quite doing the nutrition piece, and I can explain why in a minute. However, we'll be doing the exercise piece to build those habits. We have a child who wants to play a sport for the first time come up in the fall, and that just doesn't magically happen where you step on the field and you feel the confidence that you can play. It takes a little bit of getting some coordination, a little bit of exercise. When you say workout, I don't want people to think that they're just doing like squat thrusts up and down like a military calisthenics workout. They're catered towards the children. Like I said, it could be a walk, it could be out playing soccer together, doing some training. It could be an actual gym workout that's catered to their age level. So picking intelligent things and then creating the habit. And I know Joey and Vince have done a bunch of these type of cycles before, and I've seen a lot of growth in his son, and it's been very cool to see as he shares with me all the stuff that he's been able to accomplish and win tournaments in jiu-jitsu and lose tournaments and learn from them. And so there's a lot going on there, and I really appreciate that he shares, and I pick up some good things from him.
Yes, Vince is great. So mine is, we were featured on a podcast called Outnumbered the Podcast, and it's 2 mothers who became friends through a common interest, and they both have a lot of kids. So one of them has 10 children, one has 9 children, and they homeschool them. And one of the women, Audrey, mentioned one of their core principles that they live by is always thinking about a 20-year vision. So if a kid makes a decision, they always frame it in terms of, how will this decision impact you 20 years from now? Is it going to move you in a good direction or not a good direction? Or she also, I love this example, they live in a 3-bedroom house, so their children clearly need to share bedrooms. And if there's some kind of a sibling rivalry or an argument between siblings, they have to go to bed resolved. You can't go to bed angry. So her idea is, what do you want the relationship between yourself and this sibling to be 20 years from now? Do you want to be close? Do you want to be friends, or do you want to grow apart? So is your decision helping you grow apart or grow together? So I just loved that idea, and I immediately that evening shared it with the kids at dinner, because I thought it was a great perspective to not think so small and so in the moment, but to actually consider your choices and your thoughts and how they're going to impact you down the road, which I don't think kids naturally do. I think that's something that has to be constantly brought up so they consider the future. I loved that.
Yeah, they did a great job, and actually we interviewed them for this podcast as well, and that episode will be dropping here very shortly, and they have a great perspective that we can't provide because they have so many more children. Like, it's a different ball game, I guess, with 10 and 9. Outnumbered the Podcast gave us some good info, and we'll be hosting them here shortly. Let's get into today's topic, Mel.
So we're talking about connection before correction. And I had written connection over correction, but I think really before is what matters here. You need to be able to establish relationships with each of your children. And I think the first thing I want to bring up is how each child is so different. So the way I establish a connection with Everett, Henry, and Logan might look different because they have different interests and they are at different ages. So for example, with Everett, he's 5 years old. And this morning, here's an example already. So it's Saturday. I stayed in bed a little longer, and I hear his door open, and he yells upstairs, "Somebody come."
Yeah, like, come hither.
I'm still in bed, Ev. But he kept repeating it, and I went to the stairs, and I said, "What do you need?" I want someone to hang out with me during my workout. Because he has recently stepped up, and he saw that his older brothers were doing like a 5-minute morning routine every day, and he felt left out, and he's super committed and determined and consistent with it. So he just wanted me to hang out with him down there. So to foster my connection with him, because I easily could have been like, it's Saturday morning, I want to have my coffee, go do it yourself. I instead went down there, still in my pajamas, didn't brush my teeth or anything, and hung out with him while he did his workout. And it was awesome. I love that, first of all, that he wanted someone to be with him, and that I got the privilege of being able to do that, because it easily could have been one of his siblings. And it grew our connection that bit more. And at the end, he even had me participate and do some farmers walks, and he would twirl around, and I got to see his creativity and his ambition, and that was really special. So I fostered that connection with him this morning, but it really was an opportunity that I didn't seek out. He just presented it, and I said yes. I could have easily said no, just like my quote from earlier, but I said yes, and now we have fostered that connection.
Yeah, I think a good way of going about this is exactly like the saying connection before correction. So we can talk on connection on each because they're different age levels, and then we go back on share a time where we had to leverage our relationship capital built through connection to do some correction. And another one, I'll grab our middle child off the list, is that I don't really like soccer. I gotta say that quietly so no one hears. Like, I played it when I was younger. It was a great activity to play, a great sport to play, I should say. When I was young, through our town leagues, and then I started playing different sports when I got into high school. It just wasn't my thing. It's not a reflection of soccer, because people comment like, oh, it's the world's fastest growing sport and all that. I get it. I was slow. I didn't like to kick things. I hated doing what they called the Indian run, where you had to run around the field in a line, your whole team, and the person from the end had to sprint to the front of the line and start jogging, and then the next person would sprint to the front of the line while the whole line's jogging around the field. It was awful. I hated doing stuff like that. So I decided to become a goalie so I didn't have to run as much. They still made me run, and then I gave up a bunch of goals. It was not that enjoyable. However, it's important to Henry, and so I don't say a lot of those things. When he says, you want to go out and play soccer? Yeah, I go out and play with him. The vast majority of the time he asks. I'm not perfect, probably 8 out of 10 times, because he asks frequently, but he's polite about it, and he understands when I can't, because the majority of the time I try to build the connection with him and go out and do it, and do have a good time playing with him regardless of the activity. And so we use that for some connection time. Or one of his commitments is to walk down to the mailbox, so I try to do the kids' commitments with them to build a connection. I'll walk with him. Then Everett will want to do his weekly goal commitment. I'll do it with him, just to try to build a connection and not leave them out on an island to do it themselves.
You brought up a really important point about how our interests are oftentimes different than the child's interests. And you might more easily connect with one of your children because you have something in common. And then with another one, it might really take some effort and selflessness to say, okay, I'm going to sit and build this Lego thing with this kid, even though I really don't like doing that. It's important because if you see it from the perspective of, I'm taking this time, I'm investing in this relationship, then I think it takes on a whole different perspective versus, I dread this. But if you see it as an investment in the connection with that particular child, and you're elevating them, you're showing them that they have value and that you care about what they care about, even though you might not choose it if it was something you were going to do on your own.
And I think it helps to put some language around it to help you in those times, because like I said, I admit it, I don't particularly enjoy soccer in the past, and there's other things that we might not enjoy as parents. We got to set that aside and say, all right, this is an opportunity for me to improve my family. And I know when I'm about to get a story I don't want to hear, or explain something from one of the kids that, oh man, this is going to be a long one, and I just breathe through it, and I keep my eye contact, and I nod, and I give them a little bit of feedback on it. But it's something important, whether it's something that they don't really play video games, but sometimes they'll play like a little truck game. They'll explain all like the different things that they can put on. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is going on forever. But I don't cut them off. I let them get to the end, because it is worth building the relationship capital to be someone who hears them out.
And I have another example for Henry that I think talking about examples is really powerful. At least when I listen to a podcast, I love to hear those specific details of how they're implementing things. So I think this is a powerful one. So back in 2021 or 2020, we had decided we were going to move from upstate New York to Colorado. And when we told the kids, Henry really struggled with it. And I don't blame him. Like Logan was like, okay, let's go. And Henry struggled with it. And he really wanted to make me feel terrible because he felt terrible. So he would tell me, you can't hug me. And in the evening before he'd go to bed, that's always what we would do. And that was very hard for me to work through that, but I wanted to make sure that we didn't lose the connection. So instead of forcing it or yelling at him or making him feel bad and try to correct him and say, well, this is going to be good for us and you need to be kinder to me, that would have taken away from our connection. So instead, I swallowed my pride, so to speak, And I started writing him little notes. So just like a little, I love you, Henry, and I would hide it in the room. And initially, he would find the notes and rip them in front of me because he just wasn't ready. But I knew that I had to continue with this. So eventually, after a couple of weeks, I think it was really a couple of weeks, he started to appreciate the notes. And he would tell me, okay, today you can hug me. So it really took a lot of patience and a lot of talking to Joe on the side because it was emotional for me. But my goal was to foster the connection. That was really important because I know this is a transition for all of us. So just another example of how opportunities will arise and we need to mitigate how we respond and respond with purpose.
And even though that was a difficult situation, I think in the long run, you have a deeper connection because you went through it and didn't force your needs on a child.
Yes, exactly. And so for Logan, our 13-year-old, one way that we foster the connection is after school, instead of having him ride the bus home, which would be like 45 minutes, and I just get nervous that a lot of things happen on buses, especially after school, or things are said or whatever, I pick him up after school. So that 15 minutes from picking him up to driving home, it's an opportunity for him to debrief from his day if he wants to. I ask him how it was. Sometimes he doesn't want to talk, but I think simply just being together and he knows he can rely, like mom's going to pick me up, and if there's something on my mind, I'll be able to share it. I think that helps him to connect with me in that way. So I think that's really special. And I think for you actually, so he wants to play a sport in the fall. And yesterday, I think because we've just had this constant gentle pressure of preparing him to to be on a team that's well coached, that he actually asks for you over the summer now to help him learn a little bit more about it. And I think that's really special because you have fostered that connection with him. Those are just some examples of how we connect. And I think it's important to also focus on one-on-one time. I think it's easier to connect. It's great to connect as an entire family, of course. Like we love to go on adventures all together. We hop in the car and go hike somewhere. But to find time during the week to connect individually, so each parent to each child, is really special, and I think it fosters that growth as in a relationship.
And my last note on connection, it doesn't always have to be like you giving into the child's needs. I want to make sure that's stated. Sometimes connection is like, hey, we're going to go through this hard thing, but we're going to do it together. And so with Logan's example, playing sports, and we'll have some guests on who are experts in youth sports here shortly. My opinion, from training a lot of athletes and coaching a lot of athletes and being a teacher, is that I don't want my kids to specialize at such a young age and only do one thing. I want them to experience a width of activities. There's plenty of time to specialize as they get older. And if it's in sports, maybe the last couple of years of high school where they're focusing on one thing. A lot of their life's going to be focusing on one thing, and I want them to get different perspectives versus settling into a comfort zone at such a young age. And so he likes this organization, this like club that he does all year round. Okay, you can do the club all year round. Let's choose one season though, and it's got to be an athletic season so that you are getting coached and learning about that. If it was the opposite, if he was playing sports year round, I'd say, hey, you're not a part of as many organizations or clubs. You should choose one, maybe during the summer or whatever. You can pick any one. I don't care what's important to you, but then try to work together as a group to accomplish a goal in that setting as well. So it's creating a balanced approach. It's not me driving sports, not me driving clubs, it's not me driving organizations. It's me driving, having a balanced experience so you can learn more when you're able to as a kid, and then you come up with a more balanced approach. I tell you that to tell you this, it hasn't been easy. It was not about it at the beginning. And hey, we're going to go through this time. I'll let you choose anything. If you want to go, if you want us to invest in sending you to jiu-jitsu or whatever, we'll do that. If you want to do a school sport that's free, that'd be nice. You can do that, but I'm not going to push either way. You can choose the season. You can choose what it is. None of that is relevant to me other than being coached in that setting, working as a team to accomplish a goal together, and then learning how to deal with some disappointments. You don't win every game. My team's lost a ton of games at the small school I went to in high school, and I learned a ton of lessons from that. And so I don't want to rob them of that experience just because it's easier for me to say, all right, just do what you're comfortable with.
And I think that we often talk about constant gentle pressure, and I think it applies here as well. Sometimes an idea, like as parents, you might have an idea for your child that you really want them to experience something, like a wider range of experiences like you just explained. And sometimes that just takes a little bit of mentioning over time, and the idea grows. And I think that fosters that really connects to the connection piece as well, because a little investments over time really build up a great big relationship.
I guess I'm going to say one more thing on connection, because it came to my mind, is that I said it shouldn't be easy. It probably, or it doesn't have to be easy to do connection. It should be some hard things. It has been proven to build deeper connections when you do hard things together and you come out the other side. That is part of the reason behind like the Hell Week in military training. You go through something hard and you come out the other side. 2 days in football is terrible. Like football practice preseason, like I learned to hate the sport, but I respected the people that played it so much that I wanted to be a part of it because it was so challenging and difficult. Not true for just sports. A buddy of mine, Mark Freed, down in Orlando, owns a company called Think Integrated, and they do these things, I believe they're called Think-a-thons, where they donate their marketing time to help out some organizations, and they stay up like all night, and they do 24 hours of trying to come up with a marketing plan to help out one local organization. And that's a grind, like coming together to accomplish something in a very tight time frame I think they do it for free, and making it happen. Another friend, Sonny, a dentist, they do a free dental care day for the community. And those are the days that bond his culture together and connect his staff because they do something together that is challenging for people who can't do it for themselves. And so it doesn't have to be like a Hell Week. It doesn't have to be a super hard physical task, although those work. And I find a lot of value in those. It could be something like that. Hey, we're going to accomplish this thing in this time period. It is going to be challenging. If we do it together, we'll be much more connected and have a memory together than if we just did some easy thing. All right, let's play Chutes and Ladders like we always do or whatever.
This reminds me that we were speaking with Whitney from How She Moms podcast, and she was explaining to us how her family takes an annual retreat. And they set the theme for their family for the year, and they take a weekend away. I think her husband is a surgeon and has to work a lot, so they take this long weekend together, and all work stays home. And they head to the mountains, they find a cabin, and they work out what their annual vision is for that year. Usually it's some kind of a theme. And then they do all kinds of just relationship building activities the whole weekend. And I think that's the connection piece. You have a connection together as a family, you have a purpose together as a family, and that's something that we are considering doing.
And I think it is important that we have spent probably more time on connection than we will correction, because if you are connected, the correction piece is a lot easier. If you're connected together, you are more likely to hear the person's feedback than to get defensive. And that's a huge piece of it. And also how you do the correction is super important, which is we celebrate in public and we correct in private. If there's a conversation that needs to be had with a child for their correction, you try not to do it in front of everyone else, because that builds up a new layer of the issue, which is now they're going to feel embarrassed and now they're going to feel judged by other people. And so now they're going to be more resistant to your correction. And so there's a place to it as well. And so if there's a big correction, hey, well, we got to come over here and talk for a minute. And now we're connected. We have the relationship capital to have this discussion and make the correction. So I'll let you talk on correction for a minute, Mel.
So I think one of the first things with correction is having good communication in the family. So we talked about connection. You have a relational connection, but also being able to communicate well. And we've talked earlier about how one of my favorite phrases when a correction is needed is help me understand. So help me understand what happened at school today if there's an issue that we've had to address. And we've had a couple lately where we've had to come home and talk about it with the kid, but I always want to give them the opportunity to explain themselves so that you're not just jumping in to the correction piece or jumping in based on how you might be feeling about what's going on. But first realizing that we have this connection. I care about you. I care about what happened, and I want to understand and not just make assumptions. So I think step two really, because you have to have the connection first, is to have good communication skills in your family and be able to ask them what happened and not just make assumptions.
The second piece I think you do very well with in the correction phase, Mel, is that you make sure you emphasize that it's about the action and not the person. Would you like to share a
Oh,
little
yeah,
bit more?
sure. So this has been something this is an angle we've parented from for a long time. So I never say things like, you're a bad boy, you're a bad girl, whatever. It's, you made a bad decision, or you made a poor choice. I think we like to say poor choice. I think the word bad is just too negative. So I always try to emphasize the choice over the kid. So we're trying to raise our kids to be able to make better decisions. I don't want them to be ashamed. So whenever you focus on the whole person, like you're a bad kid, that just creates shame in the child. So we've always focused on the choice over the person. And I even talk about when the kids come home and say, I don't like this kid in my class. Okay, what choice did you not like that they made? I think it's really important for them to see other people that way too. People are a culmination of all their decisions. So, for example, when we do apologies, we say, I'm sorry for, and you have to specify the choice that you made. You're not just saying, I'm sorry, but you have to actually identify what you're sorry for so that you can then know what you need to do differently next time.
A powerful tactic, if you are worried about the connection and correction phase, you can do it, squish it all together, which is, all right, a kid made a bad choice. And you say, okay, listen, I know you like to build Legos. We're going to handle that choice in a few minutes, and let's build Legos together for 30 minutes, and then we'll talk about it. And then you reconnect before you address it, because it is establishing that it is not the child that's bad. You still want to do things with him or her. And so that's a powerful way to do it. It happened once when Logan was younger, where he did something at school that wasn't the best choice. I understood why he did. He was on the playground in New York, and something happened. I forget what happened. Some kid said something, or what.
They were arguing over Pokemon cards or something.
Yeah, and we told him, like, hey, just go away from the situation. He took that too literally, and he left the playground and started going across the baseball field next to it. And his teacher comes out to start chasing him and calling him back, and now he starts going further, and this teacher it must have been quite the scene. This teacher is not very speedy, chasing him across the baseball field, then another field. And yes, he should have came back to speak to the teacher or aide or whoever it was, but I didn't fully fault him for the situation. So I came down to school, and like we were like, all right, we're gonna walk home together today. And for the first part of the walk was just chatting about his day and talking about other things to connect before we addressed the issue, which is, hey, like, you can't have teachers chasing you around the fields. They're trying to control a whole group of kids, and if you pull one off that, then the other kids will suffer. And trying to teach them the big picture of the situation and why it is important to listen to them in that situation. So I spent some time chatting before we addressed it, because especially young, they view themselves as they can't separate in their head like them from the decision. And so you have to do it for them by saying, all right, we really enjoy you. This decision was a little bit off.
I love that you said that, having the foster the connection intentionally before the correction. And I think also we try to really foster some humor in our family, and some situations are serious, but I think if you go right to the serious part, the kid might just get too defensive. So the other day, Henry used a choice word, and after school, instead of getting all, I heard you got in trouble or something like that, I was like, I heard you got yourself into some trouble today. Let's talk about it. So just my ability to decide ahead of time that I was going to have a bit of a lighthearted sense about it, I think is better, because he still feels connected to me. I think it dissipates some of the anxiety, and then more openness can happen, and there's more room for connection, or for correction, excuse me.
And I think the other piece of it that teaches them, when you can connect, let's say they do something wrong, and then you create a space where you're still connecting, and then you discuss it later. It teaches them that not everything is critical or earth-shattering or world-ending. It teaches them prioritize their day. It is more important to connect. Okay, we're still going to address that thing at the appropriate time, but not everything's a red hot topic, and not everything that's on your mind needs to come flying out your mouth. And it creates a space for us too, as parents, to think about how we're going to address it. And so it's wise, and it's a good habit for life. When something goes off, like, it's not great for them to just dump it on other people. Hey, take a few minutes, figure it out. A lot of them can be solved by you or by one other person. You're not going to be that person at work that runs around as soon as you get like a negative email and dump it on everyone and then screw up everyone's headspace. Okay, let's connect. We'll handle this one thing separate from our critical tasks of the day soon.
And I think one thing that we do as well is, sometimes something will happen and I don't know how to handle it. So I could react emotionally and just say whatever comes to mind first, but I really always want it to be a teachable moment for the kids. So oftentimes I will go to Joe and I'll be like, I think we need to discuss this before we handle it with the kid. So we need to connect and talk about it. Or even if you don't do that, you can think about it as an individual before you make the correction. So you like reconnect with yourself or with your partner and try to discuss it ahead of time. I think that's really important because then it takes the escalating emotion out of it, and it helps you to problem solve. Because I tell the kids, like, sometimes I say to them, I don't know what the best solution is right now. I need to give it some thought. And sometimes it makes them squirm in their seat because they just want it to be done and over. And I'm like, listen, sometimes it takes me stepping back and thinking before we address the correction. Because I always want to have the mindset of, I want you to learn from this. I don't want it to just be like, go to your room and that's the end of it. It doesn't help them learn.
And I'm going to finish with this thought on the opposite end of the spectrum. And we'll take it outside the household for this example so everyone can understand fully what it looks like when you try to give correction without connection. And a perfect example, because I think everyone understands, is internet haters. And so these are people online that say things to people they don't know. And it's more a reflection of them than it is the person. We have such wonderful people as part of the Strong Family Code that I'm always surprised we get like a negative comment here or there. And so I'll explain why. I didn't even tell Mel this because it's not worth her headspace. But we've been posting on our Facebook page just some different parenting things and ideas. And Mel takes this time to write the kids jokes every morning in their notebook. And some guy, 60-year-old guy from New York, wrote, "Not funny," underneath the comment. Like that was his correction. Okay, so I don't know this person. We have no connection. He doesn't understand the purpose of writing the mom joke or the dad joke isn't really to knee slap and funny. It's to build a connection with your children by doing something in their lunchbox that they get to open up and smile about, regardless of the joke. Sometimes the cheesier, the better. It doesn't have to be knee slap and funny, like I said. And so I don't know this person. And he tried to make a correction to improve the quality of the mom jokes. And I just laughed about it. I felt sad for this guy, this 60-year-old guy browsing the internet, writing not funny on like a parenting assistant thing. It speaks a little bit to how sad that his life could potentially be. And so it's just like, all right, I'm just not going to listen to you. We have no relationship. Now, the opposite end of the spectrum would be like if you are following along with the Strong Family Project and you drop us an email every once in a while. Hey, here's a couple of things, the step that I did. Here's a couple steps, the path that I've done. And then we build a connection because we're learning, you're sharing, and we have a relationship. And so when you have a question, we'll probably answer it because now we have a connection together. Or if you like these steps of the paths and you want to provide some more info on some other things from your experience, that's amazing. Like we would be open to that too if we have a connection, but just some random weird internet comment. Obviously you don't have a connection. Obviously no one's going to listen to you or them or me if I do that to somebody. And so connection piece is critical for our lives. If you want people to help and assist you, be a part of their community and culture first, and then they are going to. No one serious is going to respond to some internet person who has no connection. It's ridiculous.
And thanks for sharing that. I don't care what they say because I have no connection with them. What came to mind, our oldest is 13. And people do ask a lot of questions about teenagers, the teenage years. And I think one reflection I have is if you make investments into your connection with your child, starting when they're young, when they become a teenager, they will more likely respond to your corrections. You'll have more. We talked about relationship capital in a previous episode. If you build that relationship capital over time by investing in that one-on-one connection, when something tough comes up when they're a teenager, because inevitably things will happen, they will be more likely to listen to your correction and to actually apply it because you've taken the time to connect over those previous 13, 14, 15 years.
And so we'll end with this. This is a clever phrase, connection before correction, that you can keep repeating in your head. Connection is the critical mover to establishing habits, to getting kids to learn high performance things in disciplinary situations. The deeper the connection, the easier it is and more loving the correction can be and more receptive the person will be. And so focus on connection on a daily basis, and then the corrections will become fewer, far between, and easier to do once you have that connection piece. Now, a way to do it, I gave the example online, is if you're enjoying this podcast, take the time to go over to Apple and write a review that says, hey, we really appreciate what Joe and Mell are teaching and the generosity that they're just giving of their time so that we can share these things and answer questions. You can drop us an email. I know the people who have written the reviews. Like, I looked at them, I drop a message. Hey, really appreciate that. I didn't know them before, but now I do because we have a connection. Or shoot us a Instagram message. We'll say, hey, this was really cool. I know them by name now. It's not like, hey, I liked one of your posts, or I've listened to your podcast for a year, and I'm like, oh, well, how do I not know you then? How have you not taken the time to drop a note and chat a little bit and share something? There's a guy from our local community, and I don't want to throw his name out there because I didn't ask him to, but he sent me a text picture of his core values that he came up with his family, and it like made my day. I was so excited that he spent the time with his family to come up with the core value in their meeting routine, and he sent it over to me, and it put a big smile on my face. I was so proud of him. That building connection is a big piece of it. So I know we're just chatting online and things like that, but genuinely take the time to write a review. Drop us a message at Official Strong Family Co. on Instagram. I hate how most Instagram names are changed, so it's tough to find, like, it's just all the same thing. But we'll put it in the show notes. Take some time to build some connection. It'll make a big difference, and I'll be doing the same for the podcast that host us. Like, Mel's dropping them emails and are showing a ton of gratitude because we are thankful that people share platforms and share ideas. And so if you found this valuable, take the time to drop the note, leave the podcast review. We really appreciate you. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Strong Family Project podcast.